Hey everyone, welcome back to Kearns Customs Garage. I'm your host David Kearns, and today we're going to be removing the valves from the cylinder heads and removing the engine from the truck. If you're new to the channel and want to catch up to speed, go check out our other videos here. We do have a weekly update to the cost tracker for this project, which we'll be covering at the end of the video. If you want to check out the full budget, I linked a copy of it in the description of our first video here. That way you can follow along with items that still need to be completed, or use it as a template for your own project. And with that, let's get started. Tools for the valve removal are going to be a C-clamp for valve spring removals. There are a couple of alternative tools, but this is the tool that we had on hand. We also need a magnet to catch those pesky keepers, some wire brushes to clean up the heads. Be sure to use a brass brush because the brass brush is softer metal. It won't create deep grooves on the surface where the gasket goes. Lastly, we also need a respirator for the rust removal. Next, the tools for the engine removal are going to be a metal pry bar. This is to break the seal between engine and transmission. You'll also need a ratchet or impact gun. And lastly, an engine hoist. We luckily had all these tools on hand, so I won't be adding them to the cost tracker, but for your reference, adding the costs here, you can pick these tools up from most hardware stores, auto parts stores, or Amazon. Now, let's go break stuff.
So today, we're going to be doing we're taking these valves out. What we need to do in order to do that is there's a clamp that is going to go on either side of this, compress the spring down. There are little keepers in here that we'll use a magnet to get out. And then after that, we can get these valves out and kind of clean them up a little bit. So that's the plan.
Slowing the time lapse down here so you can see the keepers we're removing. Not the best shot. Probably should have shot that in a regular video instead of the time lapse, but hindsight is 20/20. For now, let's get the rest of these springs and valves out. Once the valves are out, we grabbed our brass wire brush kit and made a dirty rusty head go from this to this. Make sure you're wearing the proper respirator. You don't want to breathe in this rust.
Grandfather!
Worry not, Podling. I just inhaled a little bit of rust.
Now that the heads are cleaned up, we're going to start removing the engine by separating it from the transmission. I ran out of daylight, but thankfully I have this handy light bar, which has been super helpful. First, you have to remove the bolts that connect the bell housing to the engine. There is a tricky bolt underneath that I missed at first. Make sure you hit it. Once those are out, you have to pry the engine and the bell housing apart. This takes a lot of doing. I used a wedge to open the gap and then got a block of wood, tap on the block of wood so that way you're not damaging the bell housing. Once we got it mostly separated, I called it a night so that way we could use the hoist in the next morning. Most of my work is done over the weekend, so I usually only have 2 days to complete a project. Thankfully, this part of the project went relatively smoothly, which has been a rare occurrence with this truck.
You got it out of there, baby. We got you.
But once we got the engine out, we put it in my father-in-law's truck, to bring it up to his dad's house, where we have a larger garage and better ability to organize our parts. Plus, now my Sundays can be a multi-purpose day. Go to church, stop by one of the best steak and cheese spots in Northern Virginia, tool around with the engine, and spend some time with family. Nothing to add to the cost tracker this week, but as we start tearing down the engine, we will get some new parts to replace anything that's worn. Adding those tools here again in case you guys want to budget your own project. Shout out to Happy Garage, who was my reference for the valve spring removal. I really appreciated how close the camera was to the valve springs so you can really see the keepers. I also wanted to spotlight the resource that I used while trying to separate the engine from the transmission. Engineering guy had a good process of separating the two, and I can definitely relate when he said that it took him 20 minutes to do something that should have only been 5. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Please remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already to stay up to date when we drop new videos. Join us next time where we'll be continuing the disassembly of the engine, but this time in a fancier garage. Once again, this is David Kearns with Kearns Customs Garage.